Let's face it, making it in the music business is never easy. What exactly do we mean by making it? Well, for most people, that means creating a financially sustaining career as an original solo artist or a member of a band playing their own original songs. And while there are many people making their living doing that, it just doesn't happen for every single person. So, if you want to make a living playing music, what can you do? Welcome to The Future of What? I'm your host, Portia Sabin, president of the independent record label Kill Rock Stars. On today's episode, we talk to several people who have figured out ways to keep playing music and being creative without exactly making it as an original band. It's all coming up on The Future of What?
Can I have a taste of your ice cream? Can I lick the crumbs from your table? Can I interfere in your crisis? No, mind your own business.
You're listening to The Future of What? We're talking to Chris Huff. Chris, welcome to The Future of What?
Hey, thank you very much.
Awesome. So, full disclosure for our listeners, we went to high school together.
We did.
many years ago. So you definitely are the person who stands out in my mind as like, the most fully, person that I was like, definitely is going to be a musician in your life.
That's cool. That's cool. I think I knew to some degree. I was also really, which I'm sure you remember, I was really into acting too at the time.
Yeah.
And I actually studied that in college. That's kind of was my track for a very long time. And during college, I worked summer stock pretty much every summer. And I learned very quickly what the life of a professional actor was going to be like, after college. And it was not something that really, it was tough because I loved it. But when it came right down to it, like, I think the decision for me was like, well, I'd rather be playing Hotel California in some dive bar somewhere than doing Oklahoma in like a bar in Vermont. I think that was when I looked at the lowest, the kind of low place, that I thought, well, to be realistic, this is where things could go. I think I was much more comfortable with that, the first scenario.
Yeah, I always think of Kevin Kline in that movie Soap Dish where he's playing like Hamlet in that steakhouse playhouse. It's got a flashing neon sign.
That's funny. I'll have to see that movie again.
Oh my God, so funny. Yeah, and my dad was an actor, and definitely I think that's something that I've thought about a lot since I'm in the music world is, one of the great things about being a musician is you can do your job without having to get permission from some third party. And
right.
And that's the beauty of it. I mean, being an actor is really tough. You literally sit home until someone calls you and says, okay, you've got a job.
That's right. It's always somebody else's words. And, my ex-wife was in Les Mis for many years. But, doing the same show every night, I mean, Les Mis was a strong piece of material. But even so, you doing the same material every night gets tough to do it for years, or decades, as some people would do it. And that's a nice thing about doing what I do now, which is my bread and butter being playing covers in, bars and restaurants, is that I can make up the playlist.
Right.
I have to throw in some songs that the general public likes, but I have control over, putting in the occasional Bowie or Robin Hitchcock or Chris Huff song. So,
yeah.
That's a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
It is a good thing. I mean, so tell us, because that's why I'm having you on the show today. We're talking about people who are making their lives as career musicians, but without, necessarily being like, okay, it's all going to be originals from my own brain. And I think that is such an important thing for people to understand as an option. Because I think everybody, when we're 14, 15, we're thinking, I'm going to be Sting. I'm going to be, the Police.
Right.
I'm going to write originals and I'm going to become a huge famous whatever, and that's how this is going to go.
Play Shea Stadium, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Shea Stadium, R.I.P. So tell us, what was your journey? How did you get to this place where you're making a living doing covers?
So I started playing covers back when I lived in New York in the 90s. I moved back to New York City after college and did a lot more original music, but it was, I saw people on Bleecker Street who were playing, and they were playing more than I was, and that was always a big thing with me, was like, I just really want to play. Like, I want to be making music more nights of the week than not. And I see people out here doing this, and I want to do it too. So I did play on Bleecker Street, and which is not, to be too punny about the whole thing, but it was bleak. I got paid like next to nothing, and I would have these kind of crazy slots like a Monday at 7:00. But so I did it, and it helped me build up a repertoire of material. Then we were on the road with my ex with Les Mis, then moved to the Philly area in 2004. And I knew about this area that one thing it had was a strong cover bar scene. It's kind of like a big Philly, South Jersey thing. Lots and lots of places have people, just the band or the duo or solo people in the corner playing, what people want to hear. So I knew it was a possibility. And once I got acclimated and moved in, I started looking around to see what kind of possibilities there were. And I found a booking agent, which has been, a really great left part of the story,
Yeah,
for the most part.
that's a big deal.
It is a big deal. And while I was working a day job for 3 years, and then we had a baby, and, so I was doing the day job, and I was also playing 3 to 4 gigs a week. It was a lot. So that's kind of how I got my foot into the door of this scene. And then, in 2008, I was able to leave the day job because I had built up what I was doing here. I had some regular every other week things, and a lot of the work in this area is based in the Jersey Shore in the summertime. So I spend most of my summers, driving down to the shore every day. And I play 9 or 10 gigs a week often.
Wow.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's busy, but it's also, there's a certain pride in it of being like a, car warrior going and, crusading, my little personal rock and roll crusade to the shore. So, but I've done that for enough years now that I sort of built up enough of a thing to leave the day job and make this my primary source of income.
Awesome. Do you have regulars? Do you have people who come see you all the time who are like just huge fans?
Yeah, I have a little like kind of Central Jersey crew that will travel to see me in different places too. So yeah, small but devoted following. They're the best.
That's awesome. I mean, seriously, these days, fans are where it's at. I mean, every band needs fans. Every artist
Absolutely
needs fans, and
they're the lifeblood.
Yeah, they're the lifeblood, right? They're gonna.
And they've gotten me gigs that I wouldn't otherwise get because of them.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like one of my strongest gigs down at the shore was because of these 3 guys who worked at a restaurant nearby. And I came in and started playing all these songs that they liked. They had very eclectic taste. They were into Nirvana, but also the Smiths and Bowie and, some Grateful Dead. Like they were just, into kind of the mishmash of stuff that I like too. So because of their influence, I got a regular gig there. I did every Sunday there for a few summers.
Wow.
Just because of even when these 3 guys were long gone, I was still doing that gig. I still play down there every summer. So it's all about the fans. Absolutely. No question.
It's heartening to know that you can play the Smiths, you can play Nirvana, you can play Robin Hitchcock. And, you don't just have to go and play Closing Time 1,000 times.
That's right.
I mean,
that's right. And you don't actually. And I don't know if you've ever run into Tom Jackson. You probably have.
Oh, that name is very familiar.
Okay. He's what they call like a live music producer, or that's what he calls himself, I guess. But he's basically somebody who coaches on live music performance. And I've seen him speak in different places, and I have his books, and I'm like a big devotee of his methods because they've actually made me more money. One of the things he points out is that you really don't have to play those songs all night long. And in fact, when you do, it's kind of like torturous. Like you need to vary your set, even if you're just background music at a restaurant. You need to vary your set. That's something that I feel pretty strongly about because I've seen it work in the real world. You need to have different pressure on the audience, and you need to be doing different things. It's okay. You can throw in a couple of the songs that everybody knows, but if you spice it with a little bit of stuff that people don't know, it can sometimes make it more interesting. It depends on the circumstance, too. I'm not going to do that at like a wedding where everybody's dancing. I'm not just going to start playing, Brenda's Iron Sledge or something. Have everybody look at me like, what?
How many weddings do you play, would you say? I mean, is that a large part of your business or is that just sort of a sideline?
It varies year to year. Some years I'll do like one, and some years I'll do like 5 or 6. I would say it's kind of a side thing. I do more corporate events than I do weddings, I would say.
Wow. And how did you get into corporate events? How did that come about?
It all comes through my booking agent.
That's very handy. I mean, I can really see that being lucrative.
It helps, yeah. I mean, I wish there were more of them, but it's a good stuff when you can do it. I'm playing a conference out in Harrisburg in March, which I've done for a couple of years now, and yeah, those are good gigs.
And this is so interesting because you've kind of created this really interesting niche for yourself where you get to pretty much stay close to home.
Yes, and I do that to a degree because of my daughter, because I'm a co-parent of a 10-year-old or 11-year-old. Excuse me, she's 11. I cannot regress her, but that's part of the reason that I keep that. But also, certain times of year I am really on the road. It's a small road,
Right.
It's the same road. It's the AC Expressway, and often I will drive home to my own bed because it's cheaper, and it's also, even 5 hours of sleep in your own bed is better than.
Oh yeah. You don't have to tell me that.
So, that's right. I know you travel a lot. So.
Yeah. Too much. So let's talk a little bit about your own music because you have written your own music and in fact you've put out albums.
Yes, 2 of them on iTunes. There's a pretender Chris Huff out there though who made a record more recently than I did. So it's not the record about time. My records are called North Cathedral Way and Death in Texas are my records. Yes, I've done 2, and I am working on a 3rd slowly but surely. So.
Oh, that's great. So you do still have the time to be creative on your own hook or however you would say that. I mean, you can do your own songwriting, you can put out your own albums, but you do have this nice lucrative career going that doesn't hinge on the classic album cycle. Like you write an album, you put it out, you tour for 2 years, then you write another album, you put it out.
Right. Right. No, I am free from that to a degree, which is nice. And when thinking about planning a musical project, it has a different kind of, I guess I think more of artistic goals, than I do about, having a hit single, even though I think about that too. So,
right. But it's nice because it gives you a little bit more time. I think like the job that I'm in, I mean, I'm working with artists who literally are on, if you haven't put an album out in 2 years, you got a problem because
that's right.
People move on to the next thing and then they're going to be less excited when you do, and that's a hard road to be on too. I mean, people have to be realistic. So that's like my theme song on this radio program is artists have to be realistic about what this job is. And I think it's really cool. I'm glad we were having you because I want people to understand this is totally a legit option too. This is a great way of making a living, being a career musician.
That's right.
But not being on that other track of, album every 2 years tour.
Right. And it depends on, it fits better with my life, which is good. And it also fits with my kind of personality. I mean, I really do have this kind of compulsive need to play, and it's like good that I have a period of time during the year where I play like 10 gigs a week. It really satisfies something deep within me. And even at this time of year, when I only have like 3, once I get to the weekend, I can kind of like everything's always okay once I'm set up and I start to play. Like no matter what kind of little out of the way joint I'm in, everything's always okay once the music starts.
Wow.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah, it's nice, I think, for people to know that they have options because I think original music, at least around here, can be a very bleak proposition if that's all you're doing.
Yeah, that's true. And, there's nothing guaranteed about this, this business. And you can write really good songs and still not do that well because maybe you only just write okay songs or like, pretty good songs, but you don't write great songs. It's so hard and it can be so heartbreaking if you've set your heart on doing, X and you find that you can't actually do X and you can't let go of that with grace, And I think it's interesting that you've already had that experience in your life with acting because it's like, oh no, I don't want that. That is not what I want for my life.
Well, and I learned that by doing it. Like I learned it by working for $60 a week in a barn in Vermont. I mean, I did that for once. Well, it wasn't a barn. It was actually an old Masonic hall. Like the theater didn't even have a theater.
Right.
And I mean, it was a great experience. Did you come to see me there?
I have a funny feeling I did, actually.
I have a memory of you coming to see me, and I think that maybe it was there. That's very funny. But yeah, it was an experience. It was going out and doing it and seeing what it was really like, and also getting to talk to some of the older actors who were doing it, because I met people who were in their late 20s, early 30s, who this is what they did, and they went from the summer acting job to another acting job somewhere else in the country, and they were just doing it year round as best as they could, and this was their life.
Yeah.
So what kind of felt like summer camp, and then when you think like, so summer camp would sort of be your life, and you really would just like live in a room with a roommate like all the time, and like I don't know, there were just it wasn't worth it to Oklahoma. Let's put it that way.
Right. And that just wasn't for you. And I'm so super proud of you for figuring that out, because, some people don't figure that out until it's too late. I always tell bands, it's like, before you come to me and say, I want you to put out my record, I want you to have been on the crappiest tour in the history of tours, where you slept on dirty, disgusting floors with dogs standing on you and made $0 and, showed up at venues that had burned down the night before. And I want you at the end of that tour to say, that was the greatest thing I ever did. Let's do it again. Because if you can't, you don't want this job. This isn't the job for you.
I have to agree with all of that. That's absolutely, you have to, because that's what it takes. That's what it is. Yeah. There was a great book I read. You might have read it too. Michael Azerrad. It's the title escapes me, but it's a book about the early 80s alternative bands.
I think it's called This Band Could Be Your Life.
That's it. Yes.
Yeah, that's a great book.
And that book opened my mind a lot, because it was like, wow, these bands really had a shitty time of it. Like this, reading about the Minutemen and how long it took them to quit their day jobs, and how little money they made, and how there weren't even any venues necessarily for them to play, and it was all just striking out and trying to form their own thing. I don't know, it's very, I think it should be required reading for what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I'm just going to tell everyone that. Just go read Our Band Could Be Your Life, and you will know. And if you still want to do this, then you can talk to me.
Then you can talk to me.
Right, totally. Well, Chris Huff, it has been such a delight talking to you. Thank you so much. And if people want to find you, they can look for your music on iTunes, or do you have a website? Sort of
in between websites right now, but they can always find me on Facebook.
Great.
Facebook.com/HuffRock.
Awesome.
And yes, 2 albums on iTunes, but not the one called About Time.
You should sue that guy.
I know. I'm going after him.
Yeah. Chris, thanks so much for being with us today on The Future of What.
My pleasure, Portia.
Choke your finger water underneath the stairs. But when the fortune teller caught you unawares, you said nothing, for your fingers they were dry, and your eyes are full of supernova pipe. Hey, hey, now, is the only time there is. Hey, now, is the only time. Yeah, the only time. Oh, hey. Yeah, hey. Mass and flower bowls and purple denim shoes, chewing laxatives and smoking leather clues. Fascination shower dripping down the road, and you know it isn't anything at all. Hey, hey, now, is the only time there is. Hey, now, is the only time. Yeah, the only time. Oh, hey. Yeah, hey. Oh, what to do? Just look at you. Yeah, you're laughing through and through and through and through and through.
That was Hey Now by Chris Huff. If you're enjoying this program, please subscribe to our show on iTunes. To find out what's coming up next, Follow us on Twitter at KRSFOW. You're listening to The Future of What? We're talking to the Not Its. Hey, you guys, welcome to The Future of What?
Hola.
Hi, Portia.
Awesome. So you may be asking yourselves, why are we talking to Portia today? What is going on? And the answer is, this radio show is targeted at people who are in the music business and who want to be in the music business. We have a lot of listeners who are sort of young people, like I'm sure the three of us all were once in our teens, where we're like, I want to be a rock and roll star. And you want to get in a band and play original music and become huge.
Right.
And then you grow up. Or, as many people discover, you really hate sleeping on floors on tour. There's so many things that can get in the way of, really making it as a original rock band.
Right.
And so a lot of people choose to stay in the music business, but they're doing it in really creative ways. And I think you guys are one of those examples because you're doing something really cool and you're staying in the music business.
Yeah.
And so tell me, how did you decide to start the Not Its?
I would say my rock star dreams died way too late. Like it took them a long time to die. And like really through my 30s, I was like, I can still do this. I had 2 kids, 2 small children. And I actually think I went through a period of mourning and depression when I realized, this isn't really going to work. I can't go on tour. I have to make a gainful living.
Well, to be fair, Sarah, you were in a band earlier in your career that actually did some stuff. So, you weren't just a hopeful. You actually had some experience in the music business. So it's not that shocking that you continued. You were in a band called Velocity Girl, which I remember well.
Yeah. And so we were fairly successful, in hindsight. It was during the sort of indie rock bubble, and we were all in our 20s.
Where labels would just give you money, and then
yeah.
Yep.
you could actually feel like it was your job.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. We got a monthly stipend from our advance. We had an accountant, and it was all very fancy. And, we definitely enjoyed a certain level of success. And of course, like I said, having been in my 20s, I was like, oh, this is how it is, I guess.
You don't still owe money for that, do you? I hear horror stories of people got these big advances.
Yeah, I think we probably do, but Sub Pop is, they're mensches. They're not going to, and they're also doing well, so they're not going to ask us for a payment for our advance. Yeah, so it took a while to find a balance between my life is different now and I have a family. And, I kind of stopped making music for a while. And I would say that's sort of where Danny came in and sort of rallied the troops to try and...
This beacon of light comes in named Danny to save the day.
It's true.
It's like kid music.
He did. He was very enthusiastic and very task-oriented. I don't think the rest of us would have been as disciplined as he is and was to say, yeah, we're practicing every week. Yeah, we're making a record in 3 months. Let's try and get some shows. So he's our de facto manager. I would say that's a big part of how we were able to keep this going.
And it all came out of just the fact that Sarah and the other guitar player in the band named Tom and myself, we were all just really good friends. And we were all at that age where we all started having children. And because of that, we weren't playing music anymore. And we all wanted to again because we all had played indie rock. So we're all like, man, it'd be really cool if we could figure out a way to do this. And we just said, let's give this weird thing a try. And it ended up working out.
And Danny, you were in a ton of bands before too. I mean, you've been doing this for a while as well.
Yeah. Tons of bands that no one would ever know. So yeah, that's
We need Waffle Stomper.
Yeah, oh God. So yeah, everyone has, Sarah obviously has the most street cred. Michael, the current drummer, he's got the second most. He played drums. He was the second drummer in the band Harvey Danger.
Woo!
Everyone had done it in the past, and so we all needed the excuse.
Yeah, so tell me how you had this vision. I mean, this was your idea. You were like, hey, let's put together a really cool band. We get to play sort of power pop, not exactly that different from, what some of us have been playing for a long time, but it's for kids. Was that your vision?
Yeah, I would say the core vision from the get-go was let's make music that we like to hear and that we like to play and just switch up the lyrics.
Right, what the song's going to be about, we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
We'll figure that out later.
I can't say I'm surprised because when I went to see you guys, I did one of those mom things where a mom friend was like, hey, come see this band with us. They're really good. And I'm always like, uh-huh. Great. It's music for my 4-year-old. I can't wait. I was so stoked. I was like easily the most stoked person in that room when you guys started playing. I was like, oh, these are my people. This is my music.
Was that
Like,
you in the front in the mosh pit?
Right.
yeah, well, yeah, I think I was probably making sure my kid didn't jump out a window. But my husband and I, we try really hard. We play nothing but old school hip hop and 80s music for him. And he's always just like, turn that noise off.
Keep working on it. My kids love the 80s.
Break it down. You got to break it down.
But it's interesting. There is a very strong, dominant thing in the world of kids music where every kids band does say, we're music that parents will like too. Like to the point where anyone reviewing an album, they like won't even review someone's album if the press sheet leads off with that. They're just like, no, it's like, we're so tired of hearing this. But I really do think we are, just because of how we write songs. Like we write it as if it were the kind of song we would play in an indie rock band today. Just lyrically, obviously it goes a different direction. But when I listen to all the other bands around to play kids music, I don't know that I can actually say that. Like really, like that's music that, you're going to,
right,
you would play in a band today. Like, so I really do think we have a better claim to that, although we don't say that because it's so played out. So,
well, I think that too. I mean, I think that's why I'm talking to you guys, because I was like, oh yeah, those guys are doing it right. Like that's
awesome. Thank you.
Thank you. Part of the reason we're able to get that kind of sound we want is we made the choice early on to be a full band, a five-piece.
Yes. Yeah.
2 loud guitars and drums, and the drummer, God bless him, he plays as quietly as he can, but
which is hard.
Which is really hard. But we're still a full rock band, and I think it's hard to get that kind of sound from if you're just doing a acoustic thing or a smaller ensemble. I don't want to disparage our compatriots because they're not, sounding like a grown-up band. They do their thing and they do it really well. But yeah, so we're a full rock band, and the advantage is we can sound like a grown-up rock band. The disadvantage is sometimes people think it's too loud.
Right. There are probably, I don't know, I would say 30 or 40% of the shows that exist out there that we could be playing, we just can't play because it's just too loud, and or the children are a little too young. That's always a factor for us too. So
right,
and that's how we weed them out.
Yes, but the nice part is I feel like you guys could be like the gateway drug to other bands. For some kids who are like a little bit older,
right? They
could really start getting a taste for actual music because. I mean, I would put you sort of in the pop punk power pop vein. And I mean, there are just literally hundreds of bands that I love in that genre that you could open their horizons to that kind of music.
I would hope so. I mean, I definitely think we skew, our demographic tends to have longer, into preteens, like we'll play in elementary school for 5th graders and 6th graders and they'll be into it.
Right.
So yeah, we keep them as long as we can.
Right. So how often do you guys play? Like, what percentage of your income is this band?
So I'll answer the first part first. How often we play is kind of a seasonal thing, with summer being the busier time. Like in the summer, we're playing 2 to 3 shows a day.
Whoa.
If the timing works out.
Oh my God.
Because people have day jobs in the Naudits. We all have day jobs. And so therefore, if someone's going to take a day off of work to play a show in the summer, it's nice if we can squeeze 2 in, one at 11 a.m. and one at 2:30 p.m. And they only have to take the 1 day off of work rather than 2 days if we split those up. And so, in the summer, we're playing sometimes 5. I mean, we have runs in the summer where we're playing every day of the week, if not sometimes 3, 4, 5 days a week for sure, and we'll go on some runs in the summer where we're like, wow, we played 13 days in a row.
Yeah, I'm exhausted.
But it is cool because like, for example, with my day job, I sell real estate. And so that is very flexible. And if I have a concert at 11 a.m., I can be back showing somebody houses at, 2 p.m. easily.
Right.
So
that's nice.
It works out really well for a lot of our schedules in that department. And then as far as the income thing goes, yeah, I mean, what's really unique about our band, which is not so unique about a lot of children's musicians are like, hey, I need to make money doing this. This has to be my career. How can I get more shows? Blah, 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 blah. We don't even solicit shows. Like we just book ones that come our way and we get a lot of them because I think we're, pretty high energy and fun, but it's barely an income producer for any of us. I mean, we get a little bit here and there from radio royalties, and once or twice a year, we'll pay each other out from our shows if we have, if the bank account says, okay, do it. But we do this band because we think it's fun, and we still get to play music. It does not really pay the bills.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely helps that, every quarter we get a nice check. I won't say exactly how much, but it's decent, and it's not, it helps. I think I would probably do it anyway.
Right.
Would you, Danny?
Yeah, we all, well, we've gone periods where we're like, oh, we haven't given each other a check for like 9 months.
Right, we forget. We're having so much fun.
So I think that's proof that we would do it regardless, because we're all good friends. None of us are dating or sleeping with each other, which is, screws any band up.
Oh, tell me about
all
it.
of our spouses and kids get along. And what's super cool about this band, and the reason why we all do it, is a lot of our concert opportunities, like last year we played in India, and a bunch of us took our whole families with us, because when else are you going to go to India? And the last couple years, not this past New Year's, but the 2 New Years prior, we played at Legoland for their New Year's Eve celebration, and we get to bring our families, and the lodging's free.
Oh, wow.
And they get to go to Legoland, and our kids, so that's the huge perk of being in this band, and part of what keeps us going.
Yeah, it's the sort of family-oriented stuff that we do, and we are, to get a little schmaltzy, we are kind of a giant family, and we're sort of this merry band of kids and grown-ups just kind of having fun on the road. And, that doesn't happen all the time, but when it does, it's pretty special.
One of the events we play is at this place called Seabrook, which is out on the Washington coast, and they have this event in the summer, and they just give us a giant house that sleeps all 20 of our posse.
Wow.
And we play for free. We play in exchange for a house and a weekend on the beach. That's how much we like each other.
Yeah. That rules. That sounds so great. I mean, I love it because there's a lot of ways to make a living in the music industry, but it's just great to know that you have an opportunity to do something that you love, and there's other perks. To me, that sounds fantastic. I'm like, I would totally play in a band if I got to go to India and, have a fabulous beach house for the weekend. Because when you have a family, everything really changes. Your priorities change in a way that when you were 22, you just really didn't have any way of knowing.
Right.
We're going to be a thing. So it's just great to hear that I love that. That's so cool. I'm impressed.
Yeah, it's pretty great. And I think we're lucky in that all 5 of us, Danny was talking about the flexibility of his job. All 5 of us really have a weird amount of flexibility. Even one of us who works at a corporation obviously just got a boss that understands that she's got something that she does that she's passionate about and is giving back to the community. That's another thing that we hope we're doing, is giving something back to the community and connecting with our community.
We talked about that before. That's one, because it does not pay our bills. That's the way I've always looked at it. To have parents come up and be like, this is so awesome, that you guys do this, and my kid's so stoked, that, and the fact that we get to play loud music and jump around and get sweaty and hopefully lose some weight in our old age. That's what helps do it for essentially free. And also, it's a community service, providing this really cool thing for families to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And you get to wear costumes, which I've always been a big proponent of costumes.
Yeah.
I think that's an important part of people's stage shows. I have to say, it's a little part of my soul died in the early 90s. The whole flannel thing. I was just like, really?
The anti-costume, although that really in and of itself was a costume when you think about it.
Definitely.
The long hair and the ripped jeans. It's a costume. It's just, kind of worn down a little bit.
Are we going to do the pink flannel? Are we going to
maybe
bring
we
out the
should?
pink flannel?
It's funny, the costume thing was so obvious to us. We never even thought twice about it, did we? I think it was what are we going to wear? We can't just stand up there.
Yeah.
And
it was hard at first. It was a little bit like the burning shame at first, but then it kind of became our branded thing. And
I didn't feel any burning shame. Danny and the guys get to wear a sort of circa 1980 Elvis Costello thing with thin pink ties and a black shirt and skinny black pants.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. Really burning shame with that?
No, I'm just burning shame being that at first swallowing the pill of playing kids music was a whole burning shame thing, that once you just started to own it and be like, this actually kind of rules, there was no more burning shame. And then you're like, hell yeah, I play kids music and it's awesome. And I played at Lollapalooza this year in Chicago.
Right.
And what did your band do? So
yeah, I don't know. I guess I was just so happy to be singing and playing music, and having somebody else direct it. Like with my own stuff, like I did 2 solo records after Velocity Girl. I'm not a go-getter when it comes to sort of moving a music career forward. And I was just so happy that Danny took the mantle and moved the band forward. So I stood up there proudly with my tutu.
Yeah.
And my black and white striped shirt. And I put pigtails in for a while. I don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
But that's so true. I mean, every band has that exact problem because no matter what kind of music you're playing or what audience you're trying to reach, it's like somebody in the band has to have that like go get 'em ambition and drive, or else it's not going to work. And you know, I was a drummer and I was always the person who was like that. And it's like, it's okay if the drummer is that person, you know, you can sort of be like, fine, the drummer's going to make us do these things. But it's like, you know, when it has to, if you're a solo artist, forget about it. It's that's asking a lot of you.
Yeah, I know a lot of people do it, but it's not my thing.
Yeah.
Self-promotion is so hard.
Right. It is. Yeah. That's why this industry is difficult for everybody.
Right.
But yeah, so you guys are doing great because you've found a niche and you are exploiting it, as they would say in cold economic terms.
Right. Exploit the children.
Yeah.
They definitely think that.
But considering it's like a loving community service act for kids, it's not exactly exploitation, I don't think.
Right.
There's a cool element in kids' music that's the complete opposite of someone like, say, Aerosmith. And I say Aerosmith because I actually heard them say once that they had to like keep changing their sound, like to keep their fans, like who are getting older, like they just had to like grow with their fans. Like
Ew.
essentially, I mean, we have like our fans age out and new ones are born. Like that, there's like a constant stream of new potential fans in the world of kids' music. Speaking of opportunistic,
Right. And I think that's what makes this area, Seattle and the greater Northwest, such a great area for this genre. There's just sort of a combination of all these different things. I mean, I think it's the music city and people appreciate music and the arts, and people are willing, you know, cities and towns are willing to put money into the arts. Oh yeah, and also the population boom. I think I don't know if that's happening everywhere, but there's a kind of boom here in Seattle, a population boom.
Yeah, everyone has 2 kids in Seattle.
Right, and it just seems to keep going, and people seem to keep streaming in. And I wonder if that's part of the sort of harmonic convergence of what has made this scene and our band so successful.
There's a lot of jobs in Seattle and bringing in young people who are about to have kids and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
A lot of that going on.
Yeah, so I don't know. We'll do a study on it one day, but that's just a guess right now.
And that's something to be said too. Sarah touched on it. Seattle's very unique nationwide. Like we know tons of kids musicians who live in, you know, like Omaha or wherever, you know, Austin, Texas, or whatever it might be. And they're always like, how do we get more shows in Seattle? Like every little suburb town around Seattle has a summer music series where they have arts money, you know, in the budget to pay bands, you know, what it takes to get them out for an hour-long show. And so that's why we're playing 5 days a week in the summer.
I think you're right.
And we're playing them most of them locally, you know, so it's pretty unique in that sense.
It's interesting though, because I mean, you would think that Omaha might not have a lot going on, but even cities like Austin and San Francisco and Boston, they don't seem to have the same enthusiasm for the genre that we do. So that's interesting. I can't explain that.
Well, I think it's interesting. I think you're right that there's more of an interest in the arts, but I also think demographically, I mean, I think probably 90% of the parents in Seattle and Portland are former band members who had to grow up and get a real job.
Right.
So now they're just really stoked. They're just like, oh, yay, kids music.
Right. Into a concert. I might enjoy it as well.
Yep, exactly. Well, Sarah Shannon and Danny Adamson are 2 of the members of the Not It's. And you guys, thank you so much for joining me today on The Future of What?
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
1, 2, 3, come and dance with me. 1, 2, 3, come and dance with me. 1, 2, 3, come and dance with me. Get your hands up high, live a while in the sky. Bring 'em low, down low, and let your body go. Get your hands up high, live a while in the sky. Bring 'em up, down low, and let your body go. Stretch your hands out wide.
That was Dance With Me by the Not It's. You're listening to The Future of What? We're talking to the Elegant Two. Chris and Phil, welcome to The Future of What?
Hello.
Thank you.
Hello. So I wanted to talk to you guys today because you do a lot of interesting stuff. And one of the things we like to do on this show is highlight the things that other people are doing that are really interesting, that are kind of alternatives for people who want to get into the music business. You know, I think all of us wanted to be in bands, you know, since we were little. And, you know, that's sort of the dream. Like, oh, I want to just play in an original rock band and, you know, we're going to make $1 million and we're going to grow up and we're going to be, you know, REM or whatever. And then when that doesn't work out, what are the alternatives? And it turns out a lot of people have some really cool things that they're doing. So I wanted to talk to you guys because you do a lot of really neat stuff.
Yeah, you just described exactly, I think, what Phil and I both signed up for in the beginning. We both just, you know, were kids that loved to play in bands, and we did that, and we joined bands in high school. And then Phil started actually playing, I think, with his father when he was like 13, and I
11, bro. 11.
11. So professionally.
Come
so
on.
I didn't start that young, but we played in bands for many, many years and toured. And
Yeah, then we hooked up in New York around 94 and we got together.
Cool. So now what do you guys, I mean, you describe yourself as a music production team, but you do a lot of stuff. So do you want to explain to people what exactly it is that you do?
sure, we evolved into kind of what we do. Like I said, we came from this live band situation, and we had both kind of burned out touring on the road. And it was sort of at the dawn of a lot of affordable home recording. Before the mid 90s, you know, it was just hard to, you still had to go to a big studio to get in and record stuff. But around that time period, you were able to start actually just getting a computer and recording gear. And we started doing remixes kind of at the very beginning. Phil had a connection with this place, Daddy's House, which was at the time, it was Puff Daddy at the time. And we were getting remix work, demoing ideas, and we started off in that kind of remix world, and that evolved into production work, and we started mixing and producing bands on the Lower East Side. So it went from the remixes into the production work, and we loved that. We loved working as a team, as producers, working with other artists, and that was really fun. And then, that whole thing, we were recording just tons of music. Phil and I just sampling and creating beats and doing stuff. And that turned into some commercial work that went out, which was also kind of fun and easy. And that kind of got us into film and TV. And then it was from there, where we are now, where we finally eventually landed was mostly in the world of TV, working with a lot of comedy people, which sort of came from a different angle, because it didn't evolve out of this commercial stuff we were doing. It really evolved out of just who we were hanging out with, people we were partying with, and kind of hanging out.
Also, there was that time back then when like the comedy world and the rock world were kind of colliding. You know, Dimitri Martin and John Benjamin and this like alt comedy scene.
Yeah,
and then,
Tinkle
like, bands.
Yeah, that was that Tinkle stuff that was going with David Cross and Todd Berry and John Benjamin, and we were just hanging out in that world. And then out of that world, was Lauren Bouchard, the creator of Bob's Burgers, and Dimitri Martin, who we did his 2 seasons of his Important Things show, and Michael and Michael Have Issues, and just kind of snowballed into that stuff. And it's still kind of all the same thing. It's Phil and I hanging out, whether we're in the room together or whether we work remotely. It's still playing around with beats and sounds and production stuff and writing music together.
So for a show like Bob's Burgers, what do you guys like? How do you work on that show? Like, what's your role?
At this point, we've been doing it for several years now, and it's as fun as you can possibly imagine doing the music is. It couldn't be any more fun, and the people we work for there all those people are incredible, and Lauren, the creator, is not only is he amazing to take direction from, but he's also a great composer. And so, we get a call and we sit and we watch the episode online. Those guys are in LA, and so we watch it and we talk about it. And as we go through it, we make little notes. And, like I said, at this point, there's a lot of things about it that we kind of know, we know we're going to do this here. These are the sounds we use. And this is kind of how we structured sort of how we were going to do it. But one of the most fun things about that show is if you see the show is there are times where we do get to explore completely new ideas, and usually in the end credit or sometimes there's a montage or a fantasy moment, and we just kind of spitball ideas and come up with stuff and try things out, and it's just a lot of fun.
So you guys do the sort of the incidental music on Bob's Burgers, but not like the big musical numbers?
There's 4 total composers, and we evenly split the episodes up. So we'll do an episode, and then the other team, which is Lauren, the creator of the show, and John Dylan Keith. So they're the other team that work on the show. So you'll always see our episodes, we'll say Elegant 2 at the end of the episode. But the shows that we work on, 90% of it we do. Obviously, the theme song was written before. We joined them on the second season. So all that's Lauren wrote the theme song. And there's sometimes John Dylan Keith, there's some things that he does in ours, or sometimes they might use a little thing here or there in one of theirs. But for the most part, we do our episode and they do their episode. Sometimes other things happen. There's a really talented guy, Tim Dacey, who supplied some music, and sometimes they bring in somebody to do something, like a rap tune or something. So, but when you see an episode that with our name on it, generally most of the music is something we've created.
That's actually really interesting if you think about it, because that means that there's like 2 separate music production teams working on separate episodes, and yet I've never heard anyone complain like, wow, you really, that Bob's Burgers, that's not very uniform. Like, it sounds really different from episode to episode,
Well, that's Lauren. I think he picked working with us because I think our sensibilities are close to what he likes. And we certainly all mesh really well together. But so we were already starting somewhat on similar ground. But just to further that a little bit, he really kind of like directs us.
Yeah, he came to us and said, I really like you guys, and I don't want things too perfect on the show, and nothing should be really too good. We're like, you came to the right guys.
That's funny.
Yeah, there's a lot of rough edges on stuff, and I mean that's kind of what makes the music on that show so much fun.
And you've worked on tons of other shows though too. I mean, so that's one aspect of what you guys do. Do you still do production work? I mean,
yeah.
What are your other sideline gigs?
Well, production work is really more at this point. It's more for fun. I have a studio that I work out of and do some stuff, and so we both have projects and things we do. The shows really do, even though we split it up, we do another show as well for Disney called Walk the Prank. And doing shows, they take a lot of time. It takes up a lot of space. So sometimes we have a hiatus, we have some time off, and Phil works on projects and I work on projects. And we work on projects together still, producing and.
Well, you just released the record.
And I just released a record last year around this time, and Phil's been working on stuff as well for solo things. So yeah, we still keep busy with production work and stuff like that.
Did you self-release the record or?
No, I put it out through Max Recordings. It's a little punk label out of Little Rock. I mean, they're evolved a little bit at this point. It's not really a little punk label. They do a lot of different things, but been around. I've been friends with them for many years, and so Phil and I've released stuff on their label as well. And then we also we can't go into the details about it, but this coming up this year, there will be a Bob's record as well coming out that we're pretty excited about.
That's awesome.
That'll be coming out on Sub Pop.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I think what's interesting about you guys is, you're from the South, and clearly moving to New York was a good idea in terms of meeting people that have helped you in your careers, but also you sort of keep it real. You go back home, you have a lot of connections there too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
That's just an interesting thing. I think when people, for people who are sort of thinking about their careers and their futures, everyone always says it's who connections are everything. And I think that's true in every business, not just the music business. But it's also interesting, sometimes I've given bands the advice, move to a smaller town,
Yeah.
which is like counterintuitive in a way. But at the same time, if you're in a band in New York, I mean, I was in a band in New York in the 90s, and it's just like being a pebble in the ocean, that's ridiculous, or in LA.
You're right about that. Like when I was touring, I always loved going to like someplace like Bozeman, Montana or someplace, because it was just so much more fun than playing a large city. People were just so into it, and it was exciting. And not on top of that, bands are able to, in a smaller place sometimes. I know this from living in Arkansas and then moving to New York. It's just a little bit easier to function in a small town and get out and play. And
yeah, easier to function. But I mean, I think New York, like the opportunities that we've had there, like from playing with Ray Davies and John Cale and Yoko Ono, to doing the Beacon Theater with Bob's and a sold out show, recording in Puff Daddy's studio for free, because he just like, there were so many moments there, that opportunities that couldn't have happened anywhere else in the world. For us, and me at least, it kind of snowballed, and the more people you knew, the more connections you made, the more opportunities in it. And it's such a big place, but it's also kind of a small community of people that are the movers and shakers. And
I guess I'm just thinking about like a small band starting out. Sometimes it's better to be the bigger fish in the smaller pond to get a little bit more attention, because you didn't show up in New York with nothing.
No, no, I was definitely,
Right,
I was definitely blown away. I had confidence. I'd already been signed to a major label and put a record out, and had done and played New York and done a lot of stuff. So when I got to New York, I had confidence. But then when I got there, I was like, oh, playing New York and actually living in New York are very different. Like, it was like, holy cow, there's really a lot going on. And I started working. My very first job was the knitting factory when it was on Houston. And then I moved with it to Leonard Street in Tribeca. This is all 90s stuff, but that was really great for me, because I think I got to settle in, and I was booking bands, and I was kind of like got a crash course on the scene, and my Southern sensibilities had to get they got banged around a little bit, but all of it ended up being all very good for me and helping me in the end.
And you probably met a ton of people booking at the knitting factory.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, it really, I mean, that's how I joined Skeleton Key, who got signed as well to didn't take very long for all that to happen, but none of that would have happened if it hadn't been for working at the knitting factory and meeting all those people. That was sort of an amazing experience.
yeah, I think, like, for young people moving there to try to get a job or to break into the business, I think it's a great thing to go there and at least try, because it's so alive. It's really different than a lot of other cities, and you're around with so many people that are so creative. It drove me, at least, to really like up my game, just being there and seeing so much creativity.
Yeah.
I think young people should go anywhere where they think they're going to be inspired.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
I think that's what it's about.
Well, on that note, Chris Maxwell and Phil Hernandez are the music production team of the Elegant Two. Guys, thanks so much for being with us today on The Future of What?
No, thank you.
You're welcome.
Great.
Thanks for having us.
Portia.
Start, stop, and start. Stupid acting smart. Flying with the flicks. You say it's just for kicks. You'll be the victim of your own dirty tricks. You got yourself to tease and displease. Door swinging wide, you walked into hide, looking at your feet, failure's complete. Saw you and me on the coin up TV, frozen in fear every time you appear. I'm not surprised at all, and really, why should I be?
That was Pictures of Me Live by Elliott Smith. You're listening to The Future of What. If you're enjoying this program, like us on Facebook and become a subscriber on iTunes. Hey everyone, I'm excited to announce that Kill Rock Stars has teamed up with Sean Cannon of The Guest List to produce Say Yes, an Elliott Smith podcast. Right now, check out part of Sean's interviews with Albert Hammond Jr. of The Strokes, Jessica Hoop, Larry Crane, and more, and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes.
Okay, tell me your name and what do you do?
Elliott.
Steve, Elliott.
Smith, I play music.
Last week, filmmaker Lance Bangs ended the show telling a story about a track from the album Either Or. And that's where we're going to start out today, that song, as we talk about Elliott Smith's songwriting. Specifically, though, we're going to start with a single line.
Trumpet's obviously been drinking.
The line that stuck out to me a lot was the trumpet's obviously been drinking.
Trumpet's obviously been drinking.
The trumpet player who's obviously been drinking in Rose Parade.
He's picking up even the simplest lines.
And that's our show. The music we played today was used by permission. You heard Chris Huff, The Not It's, Elliott Smith, and of course our theme song, Mind Your Own Business by the Delta 5. Subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. For more info on our shows, check out our website at killrockstars.com/thefutureofwhat. Our program was engineered by Brent Asbury at Beta Petrol and is produced by Will Watts and Anna McLean. See you next week.